Today, we're going to talk about why building a real business does not require quitting your job, raising a pile of money, and forcing growth before you're ready. Sometimes it can take 6 years of nights, weekends, and working on vacations to build enough trust or enough community or enough momentum to finally get into a position where you can go all in. We're going to get into why community can be one of the strongest forms of product market fit, why some of the best products often come from listening instead of inventing, and how Ryan and Katie finally made paid media profitable by taking the product out of the ad and focusing entirely on the customer's problem. We will also get into why saying no to retail can be the right growth strategy, something that I lived very personally at Bottle Keeper, why keeping your job can actually make you a more patient and creative founder, and how to build a company around the life you want instead of someone else's entirely different definition of success. It's a conversation about trust, patience, ownership, community, and choosing durable growth over hypergrowth. Our guest today is Ryan Dunlop. He is the co-founder of Love Sweat Fitness. I am Adam Callinan. This is Growth Mavericks. Welcome to the Growth Mavericks Podcast, where we know that entrepreneurship isn't just about strategy. It's about stamina. It's about disrupting your default and getting comfortable being uncomfortable so you don't burn out before you break through. I'm your host, Adam Callinan. Let's get to work. So you're in Southern California, and let's go back to your origin story. Were you the entrepreneurial kid that was, organizing the neighborhood kids selling rocks to their parents?
Yeah. I think from a young age, my whole personality was rooted in, how can I build things? How can I create a business? Everything from lemonade stands to my parents would always send me in to negotiate price on, we're purchasing some little thing. We're out on vacation. Hey, Ryan, you go see if you can get the best price from them. So it was always just something that's in my blood. And my parents were both, entrepreneurs and business owners. And so just kind of something I grew up with and loved, but it wasn't actually the path that I took, out of college. I worked in CPG, corporate America sales and marketing for a decade. And so I actually went a different route, but I think during that time, it was abundantly clear to me that, I was meant to do something else and meant to be out on my own. I think I moved along well in that environment until a point where, it said, hey, wait a second, you're not the one making the decisions here. And I said, oh, okay, well, I don't know if this is for me then. So yeah, it was kind of an interesting path.
What was the CPG world that you're operating in?
Yeah, so I spent about 7 years working for PepsiCo in a variety of functions, running operations for San Diego markets. I ran sales for high level convenience and drugstore chains. And then I worked for Danone Waters, so Evian Water, for about 3 years in similar capacity, building out route to market and, just running that business from, pretty much across the country, building that network of distributors and salesmen. And so, yeah, very different than what I do now, but also very similar in a lot of ways because we take a lot of learnings from that and apply it to what we're doing on the supplement side.
So you went from super entrepreneurial kid, grew up in a super entrepreneurial household, to the biggest CPG like humanly possible.
Yeah.
Pepsi.
Yeah. And it was good. It was good experience, but I think just living in that environment, it's so limiting, right? Like you really can only do what's inside the bounds of the corporate shadow, and the level of creativity there, I think, is minimal and intentionally so. And so for me, I think that was something that just didn't fit with my personality. And, I think it was like, at times it was welcomed. It was like, wow, there's some different ideas coming here. We're kind of pushing the boundaries. It's exciting. And then you get too far with it. They say, hold up 1 second. That's further than we can't do that here. We don't do those things. And, for me, that was just too limiting. So, I always had this idea in the back of my mind of, what could we do? What could we do on our own? And it bugged me for a long time. And you get restless in those corporate environments, I think. But when you finally get out of it, it's pretty freeing.
Yeah, going from decision by committee into the wild world of entrepreneurship. You mentioned that there was a lot that you took from that experience into the entrepreneurial world. What are some examples of things that you learned there, good or bad? I mean, a lot of stuff we learned is from scar tissue and pain.
Definitely. I mean, I think on the good side, just the relationships that I built across that category and all of those, retail outlets and how they operate and run business, I think that was one thing that's actually led us as a company at Love Swift Fitness to avoid retail, at least for the early part of our journey. Is, I saw the ins and outs of what goes on in a retail business, even at the level of a PepsiCo, and the struggles and the financial commitments and, some of the unreasonable things that are done, between brands and distributors and retailers. And so that was actually really powerful for us to say, on the day one that we launched Love Swift Fitness Nutrition, our supplement line, we actually got a call from Erewhon. And they said, we'd like to look at bringing you guys in. And to us, that was so exciting. We said, oh my gosh, like, this is fantastic. Of course we'll do this. But I was able to take a step back from my experience and say, hold on a second, like, there's a lot of expectations that come along with getting into retail. And if you don't do it right the first time, you're setting yourself up for failure long term. And so that was good learning for me to be able to pump the brakes for us for a bit. We did, go down the road with them a little, but eventually we said, you know what, it's not the right time for us to do this. And it still hasn't been the right time. Not that it won't be someday, but I think a lot of learnings that I had from my time at Pepsi and at Evian just led us to say, you know what, that's not going to be the right decision, because I know it can happen to a brand that takes that on too early.
Early on in our bottle keeper days, I read an article, I don't remember where, I wish I did find it, that would be amazing, about GoPro. And what I took from the article was their stance on entering retail was similar. And granted, it's, obviously GoPro physical products, an entirely different space than consumables and like the true classical CPG world. But their position was that they wanted to first build entirely direct to consumer to be able to control and own the customer. And that by the time they went in, and they were telling the story in reverse, like they were already in Best Buy, which was their first major retail expansion. But the point of that is, by the time they went into Best Buy, they had so much leverage over the consumer that they were effectively able to, I'm sure they weren't maniacal about it, but like dictate the terms, dictate where it goes, dictate map pricing, dictate everything. And so I executed from that experience the exact same thing at Bottle Keeper, similar to what you were talking about. We had a ton of customers come early on that wanted to sell it in their stores, and we just told them no. And it's hard to say no to money. Like when you're early on and you need the money, it's really hard to say no, but it's so important to keep that focus, the guardrails.
Yeah. And we really think our competitive advantage is our relationship to the customer and how close we can stay to them, how much we can listen to them, and how we can develop that relationship. And I think the amount of things that we do to connect with our customers beyond just selling them a product is where we stand out. And so when we think about moving that into retail and customers finding us potentially for the first time, not having that bridge built or not having a big enough infrastructure to eventually reach that retail customer, for us as a brand, like, we don't think we can do everything that we want to in order to create an experience that's on brand for us and that feels like Love Swift Fitness. And so, I think that's important. Exactly what you said is, like, of course we could go do it and the money sounds great and the visibility and it looks sexy to put it on LinkedIn and say, hey, we're in this store. But at the end of the day, like, that's not what our business is built on and not who we're focused on being. We ultimately just want to produce great products for happy customers. And the best way we can do that, we know, is just going direct to them. Right.
So how did the concept for this brand come about?
Yeah. So Love Swift Fitness originally started as a Instagram page. It was my wife, Katie, sharing her 45-pound weight loss journey. And she started to build a community of people that really just connected with her story back in 2014. And from there, we, evolved those channels into a blog, into a YouTube channel, which is now our biggest channel. And then the supplement line came out of YouTube. It was Katie would make morning routine videos very consistently. And every video she would be mixing a blend that she would put together. She'd go to Whole Foods and she'd buy, 8 different ingredients, all these adaptogens and superfoods, and she'd mix them into her coffee. So every time we'd post that video, all of our community would comment, say, hey, what's in your coffee? Like, I need to know, what are you putting in there? And she'd say, you know what? It's too much. Like, I can't line all this out for you. And honestly, it's too expensive. Like, you don't want to go do this. I'm weird. This is a me thing. And we would still get people every single time saying, no, we want to know. And eventually that led Katie and I to start saying, hey, you know what? Like, maybe we could put this together into a product. Is that possible? And about that time, our manufacturer, who we still work with today, reached out to us cold and just said, hey, have you guys ever thought about starting a product line? And we said, you know what? Yeah, actually we have. let's talk about this. And so, we always like to think of our line as being born from our community's request from day one. And that's still how we develop products today is, Katie looks for solutions to common problems that women have. And she starts to solve them herself in a way that's different than just what's on the market right now. We don't like Me Too products. We like things that are interesting and different. And so so that's how the first product was born, and that's how we still develop products to 2026.
There's something really incredible in here. There's a lot of things really incredible in here. The first is that note to listener, nothing happens overnight. We're talking a decade more, so we're going to spend some time on that. But the other is the building the community first. I think 98% of the time, I totally just made that number up to be clear. 98%.
It feels right. I know where you're going.
People come up with a product that solves their own problem and they think, well, other people must have the same problem. And they probably do. And then they test it and they go and they go to the world and say, great, I just spent 10,000 or 100,000 or whatever it is on this product. And now I have a company, buy it. And there's nobody there because they don't have the community. There is something so incredible and invaluable about having and building the community first. Was there at any point in the early on in the community, was that part of the intent that eventually we'll get into a thing that is physical, into a product that is physical, or did it just really happen organically?
I'd love to say that Katie and I were that strategic, but no, we really, at that point, she just enjoyed connecting with women who were sharing an experience she went through and wanted to build a community. Instagram was still relatively new at this point. And so for us, it was like, hey, how can we just share your experience and see if other people want to connect on it? And from there, once we started to see the response, which was pretty big, pretty fast, then we had to start putting together things for them. But those things ended up being, free fitness challenges for a number of years that there was no revenue coming in from anything. Katie and I were both working other jobs at this time still. She was doing read and intervention and I was, working in the CPG world. And so these products that we eventually ended up creating, I think that just built over time. And we said, even once we realized this was a business and we started creating things like ebooks that we eventually sold as some of our first products, when we built our mobile app, which, ended up coming out before the supplement line, all those things came just because we had a community of people that were looking for somebody they trust to give them products that they felt good about. And I think that's a big responsibility. We take that as something really, really important. That's not given, it's earned over time. And so, I think that, look, whether you have a product in mind that you want to build or you just have a story that you want to share, I think building that community of people around you first to see if there's that, to us, that's product market fit. Do you have a community of people that connect with you, especially today? That is the product market fit that we're looking for beyond, can we come up with the most innovative product nobody's ever heard of? That's hard to do. If you got that, kudos to you. I think that's incredible. And maybe that doesn't require quite as much. But I think for most people, they want to connect with people. They want to buy from people. And for us, that, we really believe in that we want to be a place where women can come and feel like all of their needs when it comes to wellness, nutrition, fitness can be taken care of in one spot. And they have one, singular person or a company that they trust to help them with that. And that's our mission. That's our charge. And so, we really believe in community building still to this day, and we can talk about it, but there's a number of things we do to connect with our community, from town halls on Zoom where we have hundreds of women join us and we just get their feedback. We just listen. We just want to know what they want, what they like, what they don't like. We still do that stuff today because it's as important as it was back in 2014.
If you were to start today, knowing what you know about community building, and I'll caveat with taking into account that the value of a community today, I believe, is 10x, maybe it's 100x the value of a community a decade ago because of AI. And we can spend some time on that. But how would you, if you wanted to build an outdoor community, you were selling an outdoor camping product and you wanted to build a community in and around the outdoors as an example, how would you go and start to execute that?
I think to what you said a minute ago is where I'd start. Is a lot of people think of that as, okay, I have this outdoor product, so then I'm going to share this outdoor product, and people who are like-minded, who are interested in this product, then will gravitate to me. But I think what happens is when you do that, nobody gravitates towards you because they see products all day. You scroll on Instagram or TikTok and every fourth thing is an ad. People don't want to be sold to in that way anymore. And so for us, I think is an interesting parallel to your question. For years, since we started the supplement line back in 2021, we tried to run paid media advertising on Meta and Google and TikTok, and it never worked. And agencies were flabbergasted. They couldn't understand it. They said, "You guys have such a great social following. How is this not working? Like, I don't understand how we can't get this done for you guys." And we said, "We don't know either. Hey, we'd love for you. You're the ones supposed to figure it out." But we actually took over paid media this year, started running it ourselves, and we made one important change. And that important change was the creative itself does not show the product at all. We talk about the pain points that people are experiencing that the product eventually solves. We don't even show the product. And the product is talked about in the caption. And for the first time ever for this year in 2026, we're running profitable paid media. And I really believe that that comes from talking about the problems people are having, the pain points that they're experiencing, and relating to them and understanding their struggle. And I think so for someone building what you're talking about, I'd start the same way, but I just start on organic. And we're seeing great success with this across Facebook, Instagram, TikTok is we do the same thing. You know, we focus on what are you struggling with and how can we relate to that and talk about our experience with it. And Katie can demonstrate that for you and show you her story. And so I'd start there is posting about those things, not worrying about the product. If you have the product, that's great. Put it in your bio. People will find it once they trust that you're somebody that understands what they're going through. And I think if you start that way, you just end up building a group of people that, you know, really believe in you and what you're doing, and for good reason, because you're willing to talk about it without having to sell them. And I think that speaks volume for a lot of people.
There's always going to be a challenge, and anybody that owns an agency, I'm sorry in advance for what I'm about to say, in using third-party paid media agencies, because they can't, what the story that you just told is a lot of it is very atypical, but the part about taking it over yourself and figuring out how to do it better is very typical. And I hear it a lot from our Penting clients, and I see it like in action. The reality is nobody's ever going to think about it the way that you think about it. Nobody's ever going to put in the time and be laying awake in bed in the middle of the night thinking about that thing and iterating through ideas. Not that that's healthy. The way that you, the founder operator, are going to think about it. And, you know, making the tweak to that ad campaign, you know, the creative or whatever is just, it's a thing that you can iterate through so much faster. And I'm not, you know, I'm not, some agencies are incredible. Some are terrible. They're like doctors and lawyers and accountants. Some are great. Some are terrible.
Yes.
But nobody's ever going to think about it like you.
No, you're right. And I mean, I think anyone that runs a business can relate to the moments at, 11, 12 at night where you get into bed, you put your phone down on the side table, then you think of something and you pick it up and you have that, bright screen just staring at you. You have to just send an email to yourself. You're right. I mean, that's just part of it. And that's what we found as well is like, it's not to the fault of any of those people because so many brands run creative completely opposite way to how we're running it right now. And it works for them, I'm sure. But for a brand like us who needs to compete in a different way, it just doesn't. And so, but I think it takes you as the founder to figure that out. And, we always thought, hey, we're involved with these agencies, we're hand in hand with them, but that's not enough. Like it needs to be on us. It needs to be our responsibility to solve it. And that's, kind of the mission Katie and I took on this year is like, we have to figure this out to help us scale. And we're blessed, right? Because we've created a brand that has scaled organically through organic social and through, email and SMS. And it hasn't needed paid media up until this point. And so, yeah, we feel really fortunate for that. But of course, we want that lever to be able to pull and to reach more people. And so it was great to be able to solve that problem.
Yeah, adding fuel to the fire is the name of the game, right? And that's what you're doing, right? You've already built the fire, now you just pour more fuel on the fire. But 100%. the difficulty with the agency component is that they don't feel your pain. If you lose money on those ads, it does not impact them. You may not like them, you may leave at some point, but the reality is they don't lose money by doing it. So there's this really odd, like upside down incentive structure in that relationship that makes it really tricky.
Yeah, incentives aren't totally aligned. I mean, even when it's a percentage of spend, they're still not fully aligned. There's no downside risk for them,
no,
but there's all the downside
that's like
risk.
The worst alignment. That's the most misaligned a thing can be. They spend more, they make more. You want them to make as much on as little spend as possible. They want to spend as much as possible. Like you could not be more oppositely aligned.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think for us, it's like, we work with some of the best agencies out there for this, but at the end of the day, it takes the people to know the business best and they're closest to the customer, because I think that's what we decided to do is we decided to say, hey, let's just listen and use Like, let's do something crazy here. Let's try to use the stuff that works for us on organic versus listening to people that say, let's produce a studio ad for you that looks like it's meant to be on television, which by the way, costs a lot of money and takes a lot of time and all of those things. And especially in a world of AI today, which, we use for plenty of things in the business and it's supercharged what we're able to do. And we love it for that. But in that world, people want to connect again with people. And so when they see Katie in the capacity that we put out on paid media as, hey, it's just a person that's been through the things that I'm going through, that really connects. That really resonates. And I think especially for something so vulnerable as your health and your nutrition, your fitness, these are very like personal things. Yeah, we have to think about it differently, how to connect with those people.
Yeah, this is something Gary Vaynerchuk talks about a lot in today's version of paid media. And I guess we were kind of accidentally doing this just because I was trying to do it with no employees at BottleKeeper for such a long time. We're like everything we were doing, we were shooting on iPhones and like shitty little cameras. We weren't massively overproducing crazy stuff. And even when we were up like reasonably big 8-figure business, we were still shooting everything. Like that was just the theme. It needed to feel like some dude shot it on his iPhone and hucked this thing online. And so in today, like creating that super authentic content and finding the things that go viral organically and just putting money behind them. Like that's an amazing paid ad strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we test, virtually everything on Facebook and Instagram first. We use trial reels on Instagram as a great testing point because, we can serve it to the audience that knows Katie already on Instagram and their response is going to be different than a cold audience that doesn't know us. But trial reels has been a really cool unlock for us, both in that we, send those out on Instagram, but then they cross post to Facebook in a similar capacity. And that gives us really great insights for paid media. So I think for anyone looking to test paid media, if you're not using trial reels on Instagram as a way to test for free, I think it's a big opportunity right there.
How do you deal with the downside of being known or the downside of community? And I'm a private person, which is honestly why doing a podcast is like me being out in the open. I don't really use social media. I haven't for a very long time. And I swear when like someone leaves a negative comment on YouTube and I accidentally see it, it like ruins my day. How do you like create the structure? I mean, you've built this whole community, like epic community thing. Like how do you, or does she manage that or deal with that? Quick break. And this one is personal. Your ROAS is lying to you. I know this because mine lied to me for years. When I was building BottleKeeper, I'd see a 4x ROAS or 5x ROAS, and I think we were absolutely crushing it. When we get to the end of the month, we'd see our P&L, and we barely broke even. Now, the dashboards and the platforms, all the things would say one thing. The bank account and the P&L said something entirely different. They were disconnected. The problem wasn't ads. It wasn't marketing efficiency. It's that those output metrics like ROAS and MER, they don't account for all the stuff that crushes your margins. These are things that are shipping and fulfillment, credit card fees, Shopify fees, the marketing agency we're using, the paid media itself. That's the only thing that ROAS accounts for. But there's all these other expenses. So I built this framework that starts with net profit and works backwards to tell you exactly how to spend ad budget and how the ROAS needs to perform in order to hit your net profit target. These aren't benchmarks. It's literally your numbers and expenses based on what's happening in your business. And best of all, I'm giving these secrets away for free in a profit masterclass that I created recently. It's the exact system I used at BottleKeeper to get to over 60 million in total sales with just 4 employees and 0 investors, ultimately to a private equity acquisition. So you can find this profit masterclass at pentane.com. But for now, let's get back to the show.
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, I feel what you're saying 100% because those comments, people look, I think what we've learned is people leave them and I think they honestly, most of the time believe that the creator of the content will never even read it, that they don't even pay attention to them. They don't even look at it. And so I think whether they know that to be true or not, they say what they say with that in their mind. And that allows people to be exceptionally cruel and unkind in a lot of ways. And so for us as a small team still that reads every comment, we respond to every DM, we respond to every email, we see it all. We see every bit of it. And so I think it's easy on one side to say, oh, you build thick skin. I mean, I guess, sure. But I think that's just like the nice thing to say. At the end of the day, we're still humans and it doesn't feel good, But I think that we try to do whatever we can to see it as feedback. If feedback is there, if it's not there, then we just dismiss that as that's somebody who is is in a worse off place in life than we are, and this is their outlet to let it out. and you just chalk it up to that. I think that's probably a more healthy way to look at it. But yeah, it does happen. And it even happens inside, our actual community of people that do love the brand. I mean, I think have had points in time where, because that relationship with Katie is so deep and so real and so honest, we've had a lot of people that have felt like they want to, provide feedback on the direction for the brand and where we should go and what we should do. And like I said, our top priority is to listen to that. But sometimes it's, we don't think it's the right direction. And that's hard, right? That's a hard conversation to have, because we went from a brand. I think that's the one thing that gets left out a lot, is like when you build community with no product and you transition to a product, there's inevitably going to be people that were with you during the time where you weren't selling anything at all and you were giving literally everything away for free, who really resent that transfer. And I think we get that. Like, we understand that that's real. But also, like, that it wasn't our entire business at that time, and now it is. And so, we also have to make a living, and we have to build this business in a way that we want to build it. But that was a hard time, because we went from, like I said, free fitness challenges to, well, now you got to subscribe to our app to do the challenge. We took a lot of heat for that, and it wasn't fun, because those were people we cared about in our community. But I think we've learned how to work through those issues, and we just try to take everything on its face. If it's good feedback, we'll process it internally. We'll work through it. We'll figure out how we get better. And if it's just mean-spirited commentary, then you just have to say, this person's in a tough space, and we just leave it alone.
In that circumstance where you went from the, effectively entirely free platform and started moving into a paid model, did you see those detractors or the people that push back on that? Did you see them leave, like churn and leave, or did you see some reasonable percent of them actually move into the new model and at some point get comfortable with that?
Yeah, I mean, we saw a split, which was really interesting, and it was a tough time for us, I think, as the business owners, but more importantly, we felt like as just fellow members of this community that we had built. But we saw like a very distinct split of people that were absolutely supportive and were like, hey, you guys deliver a ton of value across all channels every single day. And this product's optional. I don't have to do it. But if I want to, I'd love to support you guys. And I think that was like probably 90% of the community. And that was great to see. But there was the 10% that were very loud, very loud. And so, I think for a while we tried to figure out, hey, how do we fix this for them, and how do we make it better, and how do we give them what they want? And I think that last part was really where we realized, well, there's just no way to do that. There's just some people that want something different, and if that's what they want, then then maybe we outgrew them, or they outgrew us, one or the other, right? And that's okay. And there's other people that probably deliver what they want online somewhere, and that's a great thing about the internet and social media, is like there's something for everyone anywhere. And so, yeah, that was a hard moment for us, but I think we just really had to let go of some of those people at that point. And the ones that were on the other side of it, so many of them are still with us today. We actually celebrated the 5th birthday of the supplement line this past weekend. And the amount of emails that we got back and stories of women that have been with us from day one was incredible. They remember things that we forgot ourselves that are just such fun moments. And so I think when you see that, it's reassuring that, look, if you do the right thing in providing value to people on top of selling them a product, then I think that's well recognized, it's noted and remembered, and people stick with you for a really long time.
Going back to our early commentary around the amount of time that it has taken to get to this point, which is wildly overlooked as, just as humans, and particularly Americans, the headlines that we read everywhere are all about overnight successes, all of which are garbage. I mean, let's be clear.
Yes.
The headlines are being written by media entities that make their money because you click on those things. So set that aside. But it's, you don't often enough outside of on this podcast and a handful of others, hear about like the actual what it took to get to the, what the thing is today. So if we go back, this started in about 2014 was the community when Katie got moving. How long from then was it until you were both working on this full time?
Yeah. So, started a social media in 2014, and we started selling products probably not until 2 years after that. So I think 2016 or 2017 was when we first released some of our ebooks, so meal plans and recipe books. But those were small. That wasn't enough to run a business. That was just kind of testing, like, are we delivering stuff that people actually want here? And then it wasn't until 2019 that we released our mobile app, which was It's called Move by Love Swift Fitness. And, that was from Katie was doing YouTube workout videos, and they were just so popular and so loved. And people said, how can I get more of this? Or how can I make it my workout program? And we said, okay, we gotta make an app. But that was, 5 years after we started the community. And even then we weren't full time on the business at that point. And so it wasn't until basically right before COVID hit, where, we had at that point, I had left Evian at that time and made the decision to go full time into this. And Katie had left her job. And so at that point, we, not until about 2020. So, 6 years later, this became a full time job for us. And we were still able to do a lot of great things with it, nights and weekends, and taking that time of I'd take vacation for a week and we'd just be working on Love So Fitness the whole time, out somewhere on a trip, and that always seemed funny to us, but it just felt right. But yeah, I mean, not until about 6 years later did we actually make this full time, and then we didn't launch the supplement line until another year or two after that, which is now really our core business and our main focus. So that's kind of the trajectory. And it takes such a long time. We always talk about this. You see so much on social of, like you said, overnight successes, or these companies selling for 30, 40, $1 million or $1 billion or whatever it is. And you say, oh my gosh, like, why am I not there? And I think we always try to put in perspective, like when you are seeing that, it's either one, like you said, somewhat of a fabricated story or embellished, but two, more often, you're talking about the 0.1% of companies that do that thing. And you obviously had some success yourself. And so there are people that get to that high point in the mountain, but certainly there's so many successful brands that are at different points. And just because you're not there doesn't mean you haven't succeeded. And just because you're not there in year 1 or year 5, we feel grateful to be a business that's been around in our supplement side for 5 years. Most businesses don't make it 2. So I think if you're a business that's kind of crossing that threshold, I'd say that's just as big of an accomplishment as anything.
When you go into business, there are a lot of different paths you can take. And depending on the path you take, can have a tendency to not dictate, because none of it can be dictated. It's all made up as we go. But like the businesses that you hear about, the overnight success, one, they're never overnight successes. They always take years. Even the 0.1% that you're talking about, they still take years to develop. But what happens in those companies, the tremendous majority of the time, is they go out and they raise $1 bazillion in venture capital. And that gives them the ability to take that venture capital and build systems and structure and invest insane amounts of money in driving revenue that doesn't make money. It's not profitable. That's why they have to keep raising money.
I'm loving this podcast.
Yeah, the result of which
Adam,
is
I didn't know we were going to go here. I love it.
Yeah, well, we're going there. At the end of it, the founders sell the company for $200 million and they own 3% of it. So they made $6 million. Now, I'm not saying $6 million isn't a lot of money. It is a lot of money. There's a life-altering amount of money for 99.9% of people. But what they had to do to make that outcome happen, working for effectively another entity, because you don't get to own it, you don't get to control it when you raise money like that.
No.
Is just a different game. And if you want to play that game, like, more power to you. There's no judgment on that. Like, we all get to choose our own paths. That's not the path that I ever wanted to take. It's not the path I'm taking now. It's not the path we took at Bottle Keeper. And those are just choices. Like, we all get to make the choices, but we just have to be really clear that selling a company for $20 million when you own 100% of it and you got to go on vacation and enjoy time with your kids, it took a decade to do, but like, you still had a life, it just sounds so much better to me than the other version where you end up owning 20% of it and you have to sell it for $100 million. And it's just a completely different situation.
Absolutely. And I think, our story on that is Katie and I, we own 100% of Love So Fitness. And we started Love So Fitness with whatever the amount of money that was required to open a bank account, which I think was maybe $500. And so that's what we started the brand with. And that's not to say there's not, like, to your point, there's not other ways to do it, but we are so glad we've done it that way. And certainly we've invested our money into the brand numerous times over the course of its life to, expand and to grow and do all of those things. But I think that, yeah, to your point, I think that there is this perception out there in the entrepreneurship world where that is the path that everyone should take. And we fell into that for a while, right around when we were launching the supplement line, we scaled up our team to, a much bigger size than we are today. And still not a big size, but we added about 10 people to our team. We were hiring, director level roles and doing all these things because we saw those companies out there and we said, you know what, that's got to be the way. Like, that's got to be how we go get this. And I think what we found was for us, it was actually just a different path. Like, our business required different things, and it requires Katie and I to do what we do and to do it really, really well, and to find the right support team to facilitate that, but doesn't necessarily require like a big corporate structure. And we don't need to have a bunch of big meetings every day. And we don't need to put together decks, and we don't need to go out and pitch, investors. That's just not what worked for us. And that's not the life that we wanted to build this around. And so I think that that's always an important conversation that any business owner should have with themselves or with their co-founders, is like, what kind of life do we want to live from a day-to-day basis around this company? And then I think that dictates where you go and how you either raise money or don't, and bootstrap it or don't. But it's an important thing because I think a lot of people don't think about that or don't ask that question enough. And they just assume like, I got to do what I hear out there. And I think that can be pretty detrimental to some businesses.
Yeah, 100% agree. And one of the things that you hear out there is that you have the idea and you have the thing, and you make a little bit of traction, then you have to quit everything that you're doing and go 100% into it, which is so dangerous. And this is the perfect example of how you and Katie did the opposite of that. You kept your jobs, like you kept income from other companies for 6 years while this thing was allowed to develop organically, which is where the power and the value is in the thing today, is that organic audience.
And it's a level of patience, and I think that having that income allows you some patience. And I think that's what people undersell with that, is like, it's sexy to say, if you believe in it, quit everything and go all in. Otherwise, I don't know that you believe in it. Well, that makes for good clicks on social media, but like in life, it doesn't really work. And I'm a big believer in this. I've said this a lot, is like, I'm not a believer in quit everything and just go all in on the company. I think that the stronger companies can actually evolve over time and build with you while you're doing something else. And there's nothing wrong with de-risking that a little bit. Like, you should de-risk that because you're talking about your life, right? And so, yeah, I think for us, like, we love that process of doing it. I think it actually proves out commitment to the business more than if you quit everything. Because if you quit everything, it's really hard to then quit the new thing you just started. But if you don't quit everything, if you do your other job, if you have a safety net, it's really easy to quit the thing you're starting. You can do that anytime, because you have a safety net. You can go back to your job. So, hey, if the brand you started is not working out, like, that's okay. You still have your other stuff. But if you really believe in it, if it's really going to work, well, then you're not going to quit that thing while you still have these other jobs. And so I think it's actually like a reverse proving ground for, are you really invested in this? Because if you force yourself into it, you're going to have to be invested. If it's something that you're building on the side, you'll be invested if it's good enough and if you care enough about it. That's just how we think about it.
And as entrepreneurs, our job, so for anyone out there listening that's thinking of becoming an entrepreneur, this is the way that you have to adjust your brain to think. Our job is to create what's called asymmetric risk. And if you think about this, I'm a visual person. So if you think about this on a scale, we have a balanced scale. In one hand, on the right, you have risk. And on the other hand, you have profit or upside, money. We want to maximize the upside, maximize the profit or income potential, and minimize the risk. So it's asymmetric, meaning it's not balanced. It's not symmetrical. At the beginning like that, you have upside, but you also have massive amounts of risk at the beginning. So that time and allowing that thing to mature naturally and not have to force a square peg into a round hole gives you the ability to bring that risk down and make that situation more asymmetric. Does that make sense? Like, that's all of your decision making as you get into the business revolves around trying to mitigate the risk, minimize the downside, and maximize the upside. And at the beginning, there's no way to minimize the downside outside of keeping an income stream. So you can let the thing mature.
Yeah. And I think it allows you to be more creative. I think some people find maybe creativity and motivation in desperation, but I actually find it, more in the peaceful time, in the time we step away from everything. Katie and I make it a point to take time away just to go work on the business outside of our house, outside of our office, outside of normal operations. We'll go take a few days and we'll just go somewhere else. Doesn't matter where. It can be somewhere local, can be somewhere on a trip, and we'll go and we'll spend that time, the full time. People will probably see it on Instagram and they think it's like, oh, they're on a vacation. That's nice. But we're just working the whole time. And we go and do it because when we get out of the environment and we're in the peaceful time, we really find that we can stretch our ideas and we can get some fresh perspective And you need that. So I think, yeah, like to your point, when you have that really, really high risk pressure, it makes it challenging to think clearly.
Yeah. And the reality is you're going to have that too. I mean, you're going to have the high risk pressure. It just comes with the territory, but let's not build it into the underlying foundation.
Yeah.
So how do you, it sounds like part of it is maybe travel and getting out of your environment. How do you and Katie structure your lives, or what are some of the things that you do to deal with these wild ups and downs? I mean, again, you mentioned like getting out of the situation, which I think is brilliant. That's always a good idea. Just sort of separate from it. What else have you learned to build and do over the years of doing this?
I think a little bit to what I was saying earlier is, we try to come back to the things that started the brand often. And that for us is what helps us move things along better than anything. So, I think you get into this mode of, I have to continue pressing in all the ways that I know how as a business operator. And it's really easy to forget about where you started, what got this going. And for us, that was our community. For us, that was connecting directly with women and asking them what they need, what they're struggling with, how things are going. And so we take that time, we take that time to do, like I said, we do these quarterly community town halls where we invite our customers, both customers that have ordered from us a ton, that have hundreds of orders with us, to specifically people that just ordered for the first time, that have only ordered one time with us. And we invite them to come and get on Zoom with us, and we just get their feedback. And we give them a peek under the hood, show them what's coming up, what ideas we have, what we'd like to do. And sometimes they love it and we're like, great, let's move this, let's move on this, let's go. And other times they don't say anything, they're silent, and we're like, uh-oh, okay, we missed one here. And I think just doing that and getting back to the roots of what got this brand going gives us such great perspective to get out of that hamster wheel sometimes that we get our minds on. And, we love doing that. But I think without that, you can get really lost in the sauce. And it happens to us all the time. And oftentimes we'll kind of snap out of it and say, wait, we need one of these sessions. We need to get with our community, or we need to get on a call with somebody and just talk to a customer. And we love doing that. I think it's important.
How does fitness play a role? I mean, you're a fitness company. So is it the kind of thing where like you hate fitness because you have to do it all the time for work? How does that fit in there?
No, I mean, I think, yeah, it's part of our life. And I think that's a great one as well. Is, Katie and I take the time, both because for both of us, it's our job that we want to show up and be, the healthiest, fittest versions of ourselves to represent that for our community. I think that's important. So we put in that time to go do our workouts and to, get that time walking our steps. Like we do that every single day. Like we have to live the life that we suggest other people should live. And so I think that's essential. That also happens to be a great release and a great mind focus time for us. Like I think the upside of that is like you get to go get your workout in. The downside is I always tell Katie, my workouts take infinitely longer than they should because I'm constantly getting ideas while I'm working out. I'm writing them down on my phone or I'm sending them to her. And so, you kind of get the best and worst of both worlds there. But no, I mean, that's a huge part for us. And I think for me, I was somebody who really focused in on my work a lot. And although we ran a fitness business for many years before, I always just felt like, well, if I ate clean and I kind of stayed active, like that was probably fine. And about 2 years ago, I realized I was actually very, very overweight. And luckily, my wife and my co-founder was nice enough to not have it bug her, and she never really mentioned it. But when I realized that, I went on a journey myself, just like most of the people in our community, and lost 45 pounds myself, and kind of mirrored Katie's story, which was pretty cool. And so, yeah, really refound that passion and that focus on fitness and nutrition. I think whether you run a health and fitness business or not, doing that allows me to be a better operator in the business, allows me to be a more clear-minded founder. And I think it's essential. It's something that really is a release, but it's also a great time to think about your business more because it blocks out everything and you just get to zone in on something. And I think that's a good thing.
Agree with that. Ryan, where do you want people to find you? We'll put links in the show notes for lovesweatfitness.com. Where else are you screaming and yelling?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so they can find all things Love Sweat Fitness on lovesweatfitness.com or on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, anywhere you find social media, we're there. And then you can find me personally at Ryan Dunlop on Instagram. I share my personal fitness story, the ins and outs of entrepreneurship and running this business, and everything else you'd want to see in between. So yeah, you can find me on Instagram.
Exceptional. We will make sure links are in there. Thanks a ton for coming today, Ryan, and sharing the story. It's an epic story. The community thing is just, I'm going to be thinking about that.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
A huge thanks to our guests today. Don't forget, this is powered by Pentane Financial and Advertising Command Center for Consumer Brands. Stop what you're doing, put your phone down, walk away from the computer screen, go outside, get some air, do something hard, push your limits, get uncomfortable, become more durable and more resilient, create the stamina required to get through those entrepreneurial barriers, stay in the game for as long as you can, and we will see you next time.